For most of us, the night is a time to rest. But for those who work the graveyard shift, it's a time when the world feels different, quieter, darker, and sometimes terrifying. Tonight, I bring you 3 real stories from people who experience the unexplainable while working late at night. Stories that might make you think twice about staying out after dark. Turn off the lights, settle in, and let's get started. Our first story comes from a listener named Jacob, who used to work the late shift at a small convenience store in the middle of nowhere. It was a job he didn't mind, quiet nights, the occasional customer, and plenty of time to himself. But one night, something happened that he still can't explain. It was a cold, rainy night, just past 2 a.m. Jacob was stocking shelves when the doorbell chimed. He turned to see a woman walk in. She was soaking wet, her long black hair clinging to her face, and her clothes looked old, like something out of a different era. She didn't say a word, just walked straight to the back of the store. Jacob thought it was odd, but figured she was just looking for something. A few minutes passed and she didn't come back to the front. He decided to check on her. As he walked to the back, he called out, "Mom, do you need any help?" But there was no response. When he reached the aisle, the woman was gone. Confused, Jacob checked every corner of the store, even the bathroom, but she wasn't there. He went back to the counter and checked the security cameras. What he saw made his blood run cold. The footage showed the woman entering the store, but after that, nothing. No sign of her walking to the back, no sign of her leaving. She just disappeared. Jacob quit the job a few weeks later. He never saw the woman again, but to this day, he avoids driving past that store at night. The Haunted Factory. This next story comes from Sarah, who worked the night shift at an old textile factory. The factory had been around for over 100 years, and many workers joked that it was haunted. But for Sarah, it became more than just a joke. It was around midnight when Sarah was doing her rounds. The factory was massive, with long dark corridors and machines that clanked and groaned even when they weren't in use. As she walked past one of the older sections, she heard something unusual, soft footsteps behind her. She turned around, but no one was there. Thinking it was her imagination, she continued. But the footsteps followed her, growing louder and faster. When she finally stopped and turned again, she saw it. A figure at the end of the hallway. It was a man, dressed in old work clothes, staring at her. Sarah called out, "Who's there?" But the man didn't respond. Instead, he turned and walked into a room that had been locked for years. She ran to the security desk to check the cameras. The footage showed her walking down the hallway alone, but when she paused and turned, the cameras glitched. For a few seconds, all she could see was static and the faint outline of the man's face. Sarah never told her co-workers about what she saw, but she requested a transfer shortly after. The factory has since shut down, but local rumors say that the figure still roams the halls at night. Our final story comes from Kevin, who worked as a security guard for a small office building. It was an easy job. He mostly sat at the front desk, occasionally walking the halls to make sure everything was locked up. But one night, something happened that changed his life forever. Our final story comes from Kevin, who worked as a security guard for a small office building. It was an easy job. He mostly sat at the front desk, occasionally walking the halls to make sure everything was locked up. But one night, something happened that changed his life forever. It was around 3 a.m. when the phone at the front desk rang. Kevin picked it up, expecting it to be a co-worker or a wrong number. Instead, he heard a man's voice, low and raspy. The man said, "You should check the 5th floor." Kevin hesitated. The 5th floor was empty. No offices, no equipment, just a dark, vacant space. He asked, "Who is this?" But the line went dead. Against his better judgment, Kevin grabbed his flashlight and headed upstairs. When he reached the 5th floor, it was silent. Too silent. As he walked through the empty rooms, he felt like he was being watched. Then he saw it, written on the dusty window in large, smeared letters. "Get out!" Pause. Eerie music intensifies. Kevin bolted back to the desk and checked the phone logs. There was no record of any incoming calls. Shaken, he stayed at his desk for the rest of the night, but just before dawn, the phone rang again. This time, the voice said, "You were lucky." Kevin quit the next day, but he still wonders, was it a prank or was something warning him to stay away? Night shifts can be eerie, but for these people, they became unforgettable. If you've ever had a chilling experience while working late, share your story in the comments. And remember, sometimes the scariest things are the ones you can't see or explain. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there. And good night.